Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to do is to go into an area that apparently is fraught with all kinds of controversy. I had a number of people had asked me, said, why don't you do something on what's in a good movement? And so this is what I did. I contacted a number of watchmakers. I asked them the same question, and none of them got back to me. So I thought, okay, they're probably aware too that it's one of those questions that I guess can lead to a lot of controversy, but not a problem. Let's take a look. What I decided to do, I thought, well, let's start with one of the best watchmakers in the world. This is a student of George Daniels, Roger Smith. And so I picked up one of his watches, a Series 3, and I looked at the main characteristics of it. First of all, it had a Daniels coaxial escapement. That was one thing that is a good thing to have in a movement. It had free-sprung quadradjust balance. What that means is that there's are on 4 spokes on the balance, and each one has a weight, and you adjust those weights to set it up. And then the third thing was 18,000 vibrations per hour, or 2.5 hertz. Okay, so I thought, well, I'll start with those and see what I can find. Now, the first one I found was the Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meters coaxial master chronometer 42 millimeters, the 007 edition. And it has a self-winding movement with a coaxial escapement. It's a certified chronometer, a certified master chronometer, and it's approved by an outfit called Metis. And Metis is like COSC or QF, one of the companies that certifies your watch as chronometer level of quality. It's resistant to magnetic fields up to 15,000 Gauss. It has a free-sprung balance with a silicon balance spring. That's I hesitate on that for some reason. Automatic winding in both directions. And it's it's a strange value. It's 3.5 hertz, 25,200 VPH. Okay. So there you have a watch with, I think it's 8800 or something like that. I forgot the number of the movement in it. But it's got, a lot of the things that the Roger Smith movement had. Okay, now the next place I went to find it was, I went to the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève, and the category that's called the chronometer category. Now, if you want to get down to the basics of good mechanical watches, you want to take a look at the watches that are in the chronometer category. Now, this one, if you look at this, the reason I picked this one by Brevet Naudot Eccentricity, this watch was one of the finalists, and the guy who's the watchmaker is a young guy from France. And one of the things he had was a manual winding key. And this was important because you don't have the keyless works get in the way. You don't have the stem and the crown to deal with. And so you end up with a very, really down to the brass tacks. In fact, in George Daniels' book on watchmaking, all of them were keyed. So even though some of the ones he made were not. Okay, so this is got the free-sprung movement, or balance wheel, and you can see it right over there on the left side. It's got the nice big wheel. A big balance wheel is another thing that I like, because the bigger the wheel, the more stability that it has. And then it has something I'll use Smith term and call it the quadra just balance. You can see the four weights on the four spokes of the movement. And then again, it's at 18,000 VPH, or 2.5 hertz. Okay, well, so I thought, all right, well, this is one, but I mean, like, you don't find too many wristwatches with a key. So I thought, well, all right, I'll look at the finalists that were in the 2020 Grand Prix d'Horlogerie in the chronometer class. Chronometry is what they call it. And the thing that I found out was that they all had some kind of mechanism for a constant force. They had free sprung balances, and they were between 2.5 and 3 hertz. And so they have, when we look at these, we find a lot of similarities in that sense. In other words, if you're looking for a good movement, then you probably want to consider some of these things. Free sprung balance, the lower hertz rate. And I know a lot of people say, yeah, you're nuts. You need most watches are run at 4 hertz. That Omega we just looked at, that's 4 hertz. And well, it's 3.5 hertz, but close. All right. But this is one of the things, and these are the finalists. Here are the judges who are watchmakers and experts on watches, and they're saying, okay, what is important for your movement? Okay, because chronometry is essentially that, and this is what they all have in common. Now, in looking at free sprung balances, some very popular watches running at 4 hertz, true, but still they do have the free sprung balance. These are Rolex Movements, and Rolex Movements, they have this thing called the perpetual oyster type of movement, and they all have a similarity to them. And what you have here, one of the big disappointments for me about Rolex is you can't see the movement. They all have solid backs, which of course is part of the oyster perpetual keeping the water out of them. Okay, some elements of this I thought were interesting. The paramagnetic blue parachrome hairspring. This is important. They make their own hairspring. It's anti-magnetic, which is important, all right, or unmagnetic, doesn't magnetize toward it. And I like that a lot better than the silicone ones. That's just me. That's mechanical more than sort of a slippery slope on the way up to a smartwatch. It has the inertia weights. This is important. You can see the inertia weights. These are these little weights along the edge of the balance wheel, and then this one simply shows a balance bridge over the free sprung balance. A lot of people say, well, if it has a balance bridge instead of a balance cock, it gives it more stability, and that makes sense to me too. So there's another watch with a good movement in it that's not over the top. Now, another company that has movements with free sprung balances is Jacger-LeCoultre. And I know my pronunciation leaves a lot to be desired, but Jacger-LeCoultre is one of my favorite companies too. My wife has a Reverso, and the thing has been nothing but perfect for years now. Now, this new caliber, the 899, is a free sprung balance, and it's pretty straightforward. But one of the things that Jacger-LeCoultre has done is that they have this thing called the Gyro-Lab balance wheel. And what they wanted to do was that they wanted to cut down on the balance surface. And so they put these two elements on either end to cut down on that. Some other watch companies have done the same thing. And again, this is also a free sprung balance, but that'll give you an idea of where you can find a fairly affordable one. Unfortunately, I think this was in the, what do they call it? biophysic, geophysic. That was the geophysic line of watches they had, and they dropped that line. And I don't know whether that one is still available in their line of watches, but put into one of the other models or some situations of models. Now, the final one is one of my favorite, and that's Moser at Company. And the Moser has some of the things that I like about it. The movements have, this particular one is a 343 caliber 343 HMC 343, has a free sprung balance, and it's at the slower hertz rate, 18,000 VPH with 2.5 hertz. And these movements are really wonderful. They have the hairspring is called a Strawman hairspring, and it's made, the guy who made the Parchment, I think it was something like that, the one for Rolex and the one who made this guy, I think the same guy was involved in both of them. Now, you can see all of the balance, the inertia weights on this one. It looks like a porcupine, but with these inertia weights are, if there's one inertia rate, there's one exactly at the opposite of it. So that's how they're set up. And so to improve the balance, you have this special little tool that will to turn them with, and then some other device that will tell you when everything is balanced just right. Now, the thing about free sprung, among other things, it's a stable size, a stable length of the spring itself. Okay, well, listen, this was, I think if you look at some of these things, you can get an idea of what elements go into a good movement. Now, some of my favorite watches still use the old curb regulator. This one does, for example. The advantages of a curb regulator, they're a lot easier to adjust. Omega, Rolex, you send those in, and they're fairly expensive to have them serviced because there's more involved in regulation. On the other hand, I've got my 84-year-old watchmaker. He could take even I can do some adjustments on the curb regulator. But if you're looking for a good one, I think that one of the things you're going to want is a free sprung balance. I like the slower movement, the slower frequency, because it doesn't bang up your stuff as quickly, longer time between services, and you can stretch out the charge on it too for a little longer as well. But listen, I know this is something that a lot of people find very, very controversial, and that's fine. And I'd like to hear from you, see what you have to say, what you think about this. And perhaps you have a movement that you think is, this is really a great movement, and we ought to consider it too. Okay, invitation to subscribe if you're interested. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the Art and Science of Watch Collection.